Let's go back, way back. Back before any human history was ever recorded. A time when the Earth existed, but we weren't on it. Other beings were here, and they ruled this planet. This is the story of what came before us, and it's the story of the very first rebel.
At the heart of this whole cosmic drama is a being named Azazel, and his story is just one of the biggest paradoxes you can imagine. He was, by all accounts, the greatest worshiper there was, absolutely unparalleled. And yet, he would become the ultimate symbol of rebellion. So you have to ask, how does that even happen? How does the best of the best become the greatest enemy?
So, before us humans, Earth was the domain of the Jinn. Now these are beings made from fire, and here's the key thing. Just like us, they had free will, and, well, things got messy. Their pride and ambition led to corruption, to war, to bloodshed. But in the middle of all that chaos, one Jinn was different. Azazel. He wanted nothing to do with the corruption and dedicated his entire being to worship.
And when I say dedication, I mean he was on a whole other level. It said there wasn't a single spot on the earth or in the heavens where he didn't prostrate to God. His piety was so incredible, so immense, that he was actually elevated to live among the angels. He even became their teacher. Think about that for a second. A Jinn teaching the angels?
Okay, and this right here is the most important thing to get. Azazel was a Jinn, not an angel. Angels are basically hardwired for obedience. They don't have a disobey button. But Azazel, being a Jinn, did. He always had a choice. And for ages, he chose worship. But that door, the door to another choice, was never locked.
So, after the earth had been cleansed of all that Jinn corruption, a divine announcement came that was a total game changer. I will create a Khalifa on the earth, a successor. The angels heard this with pure curiosity, but Azazel, well, there was this tiny seed of pride growing inside him, and he started making his own calculations.
Now the angels, remembering what happened with the Jinn, they asked this question. You might hear that and think they're objecting, but that's not it at all. They were just connecting the dots. They'd seen this movie before, right? The last creature with free will on Earth caused a whole lot of trouble. So they were basically asking, with all sincerity, is this going to be a repeat?
And then, the first human, Adam, was created, formed from clay. But he wasn't just another creation. He was given this incredible gift. God taught him the names of all things. This was a deep, fundamental knowledge that even the angels didn't have. It was like a cosmic demonstration. God asks the angels, what are these things? They say, we don't know. Then he turns to Adam, and boom, Adam explains it all perfectly. It was clear he was someone special.
So now it's undeniable. Everyone there saw it. This new being, Adam, has a kind of wisdom that they don't. The stage is perfectly set for a huge test. But here's the twist. The test wasn't really for Adam, it was for everyone else who was watching.
And then comes the command, prostrate to Adam. Now let's be super clear here. This isn't an act of worship. Worship is for God and God alone. This was a command to show respect, to acknowledge the special honor that God had just given this new creation. And in an instant, a sea of countless angels, they all complied. They all bowed.
What one being is still standing. And guess who it is? Azazel, the teacher of angels, the superstar of worship. He just doesn't move. He stood there, defiant. So God asks him directly, point blank, I commanded you. What is stopping you? Man, what a moment. That question hangs in the air, one of the most important questions ever asked.
And the answer, this is where everything turns. He says, I am better than him. You created him from fire, and you created him from clay. Just let that sink in. This is it, the very first expression of arrogance, the first act of racism in all of creation. He's judging someone's worth based purely on what they're made of, and that logic came from one place, his own pride.
So let's just break down his huge mistake here. His entire argument is, my logic says fire is better than clay. He put his own reasoning, his own opinion, above a direct, crystal-clear command from God. He was basically saying, sorry God, but I think I know better on this one. And that act, that ultimate arrogance, is the exact moment Azazel, the worshiper, transforms into Iblis, the accursed. The fallout was immediate, and it was total. He's told, get down, you have no right to be arrogant here. All his status, all the respect, his entire position, gone. In a blink. He's cursed, stripped of everything, and thrown out of paradise. And he gets his new name, Iblis, which means the one who despairs.
But he's not done. As he's being cast out, just seething with hatred and wanting revenge, he makes a request. He asks to be kept alive until the day of judgment. And you know what? The request is granted. Why? Because this is where the test for humanity really begins. For our free will to mean anything, there has to be an opposing force, a tempter. Iblis just volunteered for the job.
And just listen to how he phrases his vow. This is wild. He says, "Because you have led me astray." He points the finger directly at God. Zero accountability. He can't admit that he and he alone made the choice out of his own pride. And from that place of blame, he declares his mission for the rest of time. I'm going to set up camp on your straight path, and my only goal will be to mislead every human I can.
And he's not just talking. He's got a strategy. He lays out his forefront assault on us. He says, I'm coming for them from in front of them, from behind them, from their right and from their left. This is a total encirclement. He's trying to get at us through our hopes and our future, our regrets from the past, even through our good deeds and our worldly wants. Every angle.
But did you notice the direction he left out? He never says he'll come from above, and that is everything. That upward connection, our direct link to God, is his one blind spot. It's our ultimate protection. That path is the one he can't block. When we reach up, he simply can't touch us.
So there you have it. That single event set the stage for the entire human story. The board was set, the pieces were in place. The fundamental conflict of our existence was established right then and there. Our test was about to begin.
So, why does this all matter to us right now? Because we're living in it. This is our reality. Our lives are spent right in the middle, between clear divine guidance on one side and the constant, persistent whispers of that ancient enemy on the other. Every choice we make, big or small, our struggle to tune out those whispers and follow the right path, that is the definition of our existence.
You see, the story of Iblis isn't just some ancient tale. It's the backstory to our daily lives. The same exact conflict, pride versus humility, my logic versus divine command, blaming others versus taking accountability, that's playing out inside of us every single day. So it really leaves us with one big question. This ancient test was set up at the dawn of time. How is it playing out in the world, and more importantly, in your life today?